Because rest is an insanely powerful kill option, it's essential for Jigglypuff players to know all the ways they can use rest to punish their opponent. So, to help up-and-coming Jigglypuff players improve their punish game, this video will cover nearly every way to rest your opponent in Super Smash Bros. Melee. This video will come to you in two parts, with the first episode focusing on easier rest setups, and the second episode focusing on more technical or situational setups. Let's kick it off with the easy rest setups. Okay, so to start things off, we have Up Tilt Rest. Up Tilt Rest is pretty much the bread and butter setup for any Jigglypuff character and works against every single character in the game. To perform this rest, you simply up tilt your opponent and react to their DI to hit them with rest. This setup stops working at higher percents due to the opponent being sent too far away for a follow-up, but that also depends on the weight of the character, so you should experiment to see when and where it works in different situations. Again, I strongly recommend you learn this setup. It is by far the easiest and the most versatile. Next up, we have Up Throw Rest. While this technique only works on 2 characters in the entire game, those 2 characters are so common that this technique is essential to succeed in Melee with Puff. To perform this technique, simply grab Fox or Falco, up throw, and jump or double jump into them to connect into a rest. If they DI away, you can follow up with an up air that could lead into a rest, or a back air if they DI behind you. In fact, there are actually a lot of mix-ups in terms of how you follow up off of an up throw, especially if you include platforms, but I'm going to focus on that in a different video. Also, you can still connect up throw rest on slight and away DI if you react well, depending on how far away they are. And despite what some players think, up throw rest works until very high percents. However, it does become easier for your opponent to DI correctly as the percents get higher. Once again, please learn this setup if you are a low-level Puff player. It's actually so strange to me to find Puff players that still don't know how to do this. It's very easy to get consistent after you practice it, and it's a crucial punish game tool against arguably your 2 hardest matchups. Up air rest is another easy and consistent setup that works on a variety of characters. Generally speaking, you want to go for it at low percents, and you can usually get it by doing a falling up air or off of a combo. It's super reliable against all characters, but it's particularly effective against the heavier characters or fast fallers. Next up is Jab Reset Rest. Jigglypuff's jab is amazing as it allows you to force a standard getup by jabbing an opponent who missed a tech up until really high percents. If you'd like to learn more about this technique, I've actually made an old video on jab resets a while back. Anyway, to perform the technique, simply jab an opponent that missed their tech and run into them and rest. You can also jump if that's easier, just do whatever you find consistent. While this technique is kind of tricky to learn at first, I really strongly recommend you get this down as it's such a reliable way to kill and people miss their techs all the time, especially Spaceys. Another essential rest setup for every Jigglypuff player is to rest a character's recovery option, usually their up B. Sheik, Marth, and Falcon are just some of the most common characters that you will rest, and you can perform this by grabbing the ledge, forcing them to up B onto the stage, and resting them in their end lag. You can also do the same thing with Fox and Falco's side B, and many other moves across the cast. This setup is an essential part of your edgeguarding flowchart against many characters in the game, so getting it down super consistently is really important. To call resting laggy moves a setup is almost cheating because resting a laggy move is the way you rest a lot of things, including the recovery moves we just mentioned. However, as a Jigglypuff player, you should be constantly on the lookout for laggy moves that are vulnerable to a quick rest. There are almost too many to mention here, so I'll just put a few on screen to give you an idea. If it looks laggy, you can probably rest it, but if you're unsure, check the frame data on Smashboards. Moves with roughly 20 frames of end lag or more are generally easy to rest, but you can actually rest things with lower lag than that, it's just more difficult. So experiment and see what other popular Jigglypuff players are doing to get an idea. While crouching under grab is technically resting a laggy move, the setup is focused on resting a particular move using crouch, so I've made it a separate category. Jigglypuff's crouch is super powerful and can even crouch under the grabs of several characters such as Sheik, Peach, Falcon, Ganondorf, and Marth. To perform this rest, simply crouch under the grab and jump into them to punish the grab's end lag. Sometimes you're able to connect it without jumping at all. It's worth mentioning that Marth's dash grab will still connect on a crouching Puff, but if you can bait Marth to switch to dash grab, you can punish the extra lag in different ways. It's also worth mentioning that this doesn't work on shorter characters like Fox or Falco. For the most part, you want to focus on crouching under tall characters' grabs, not shorter characters. Resting with pound isn't always intuitive to some players, but the execution is actually very simple. You just pound and react to the DI of your opponent. Some setups for this include up throw into pound on Spaceys, but pounds at low to mid percents against most characters can set up into a rest. The nice thing about pound is that if it doesn't set up into a rest, you can still use a different combo move to set up a rest afterwards. As always, it's easier to react with heavy characters, and this setup generally isn't as reliable against super light characters like Jigglypuff. A good way to understand up smash rest is that it's similar to resting off of up tilt or up air, but it's much laggier. This generally works well against spacies, but due to the high lag, it can be hard or downright impossible to rest other characters. Good ways to connect it are off of a combo or up smashing out of shield. Thankfully, if you go for an up smash, you can often follow up with another type of rest, like a jab reset, so it's still worth going for in the game. I've grouped these two rest setups together because they operate on essentially the same principle. Basically, you want to either read or react to an opponent's option by correctly spacing yourself so that you can punish them. For example, if you suspect your opponent will tech in, simply position yourself where they'll finish the tech roll and hit down B to rest. While this starts off being kind of difficult, it'll soon become an extremely reliable setup once you've learned the spacing of your opponent's rolls and techs. While this is a similar option to the option I just described, platform tech chases are slightly different because of, you guessed it, the platform. One of the biggest differences has to do with the fact that an opponent's tech roll will be limited to the length of the platform, so characters with long tech rolls like Falco essentially get nerfed when teching on the platform. This makes it possible for you to tech chase on reaction on stages with small platforms like Yoshi's, Fountain of Dreams, and Pokemon Stadium. The other reason is that sometimes it's better to use moves besides rest while tech chasing so that you can set up into a rest afterwards. One common example of this is the up throw up air tech trap on spacies, which I plan on explaining in another video in more detail. Either way, performing this rest is basically the same as the previous option, you just want to read or react to wherever your opponent will go, then punish them with rest. Resting out of shield works the same as punishing laggy moves, except you shield the initial attack. If you position yourself correctly, you can punish a variety of moves, such as Fox's up smash, Marth's F smash, and a variety of characters' dash attacks. Rests out of shield are very flexible, so experiment to find out what rests you can get away with, since you really can rest a lot. However, rests out of shield are spacing dependent, so if you're super far away, it might be harder or straight up impossible to connect a rest after your opponent hits your shield. To perform this punish, simply shield the attack and jump once the opponent's hitbox has disappeared. From there, you simply jump onto your opponent and rest. One method that some players find effective is using C-stick up to jump, as it can make acting out of shield stun easier thanks to buffering the jump. Crouch cancel rests are very similar to the out of shield rests, as you can crouch cancel certain laggy attacks and punish with the rest afterwards. One of the most common examples is dash attacks from characters like Sheik or Peach, as their attacks place them directly on top of Jigglypuff so you can just mash down B and get a punish. Once again, my advice is to experiment and see what works best for you, and look at pro players to see what they're crouch cancel resting. And that's it for this part of the series. In the next episode, I'll take a look at some of the more difficult rest setups and setups that are less reliable, but this episode should give any up-and-coming Jigglypuff player a good idea of what to focus on in terms of improving their punish game. If you like this episode, please consider subscribing, commenting, and liking the video. That kind of thing really goes a long way in helping the channel grow. Also, if you're interested, you can support me on Patreon. Even $1 a month can make a huge difference, so if you're interested, there's a link on screen and in the video description. With that in mind, I want to give a shout out to Evan Oliver for once again helping me record clips, Motbob for compiling every Hungrybox rest into a series of several videos so it was way easier to find clips, and to all my Patreon supporters. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.